Hi, this is Monica, and today I'm going to be doing a Father's Day card where we're going to try to paint a ribbon, one of those award ribbons that you get. And you can write whatever message you want in the center, like I've written number one dad, but you could write whatever you want. I've started off with a circular object. I just used a Sharpie and made a circle a little above the midpoint of the card. Because I need enough space for the bottom ribbon, and I've used a Sharpie because it's a permanent marker. Okay, and I'm starting with the two ribbons that stick out at the bottom. I'm going to be using yellow and Cayman blue for this. I may add a little bit of white to the brush to make sure that it doesn't turn really very green, because when you mix blue and yellow, it does turn to turns green if you don't have something in the middle like white to kind of ease that blending in. So that's what I've done, and I'm picking up on my 3/4 flat brush blue and yellow, and now I'm putting the ribbons in. It's just a straight line, but I started in an angle. I started in an angle so that we get those pointy triangular edges to the ribbon when we're done, and you'll see that as I'm painting the second side. And I'm overlapping the yellow just a little bit while doing the second side of the ribbon, and I'm going back and forth. I'm not really concerned about going into the circle too much because it is going to get overlapped. But I would take enough paint in medium because it's on paper, so it kind of does need a lot of paint in medium to go smoothly, and you would still have to probably go once or twice over it to just make sure there's enough paint there to for it to look smooth. So I am now overlapping. It doesn't matter which ribbon overlaps the other, but you just need to have a slight overlap in the center, and you don't need to bother that they're exactly at the same height or length. But you would want that triangular edges at the bottom because that is a trademark of most of these ribbons. They do get that triangular edge. So you see it's overlapped, but I find that my first one is a little thinner than the second one, so I'm just going to increase the size of the first one. And now you see I'm overlapping the first one I did over the second one, and it really doesn't matter as long as it looks reasonably even. And so I'm just going to quickly complete this last one. Alright, and now we're going to go to the center. Actually the sides around the center, that's the place where the lacy part of the ribbon is usually there, and I'm using a filbert brush, not a flat brush, and I'm loading it with Cayman blue in the center and dark blue on either side, so it's almost, actually technically speaking, almost like a triple load. And this is an experiment today. I mean, I don't usually use the filbert brush like this, but I just wanted to do it in a simple way where I don't have to do any complicated strokes, so children can do it more easily. If loading the brush on all, on both sides with the dark color is tough, you could just do it on one side alone and just keep overlapping. That's fine too. But I just wanted to try a different method, so I did this, and I kind of liked it, in fact. So if you see the stroke itself, it's nothing much. I'm just landing the brush approximately a centimeter or a centimeter and a little bit more maybe as the length, and I'm just pressing the brush and pushing it towards the circle and lifting up and doing nothing else. It's just like a line with the filbert brush. And I'm making sure that they're sticking to each other. Each of the strokes are kind of sticking to each other, and because I have the dark blue on either side of the brush, it kind of gives a more darker center, which is what we're looking for, because in the ribbons there's no light falling in between those layers of cloth, and they look darker even though it's the same blue actually, but because there's less light falling there and there's more of a reflection on the satin part that forms on the top, this is like an accurate, reasonably accurate representation of that with the simplest possible brush strokes. If you had to do this in a traditional acrylic painting method, and put the highlights in the center, it would take a really long time because we would have to do each of them individually and add highlights slowly, and that takes a long time. I'm going back and adding a few brighter strokes here and there using the same colors, same blending technique, just a second coat on some places. And now the outer structure is done. So now I'm taking my liner brush, I'm watering it down with sufficient amount of water, and then I'm just giving a quick outline to the strokes I've done. This is a great time to now fix all the unevenness that you may have on the outside, and also to reduce the gap between each of them, because you don't want it to look like a flower. You want it to look more like a ribbon, so you can kind of reduce the gap between each of the strokes that you've done by adding a little more in the centers, by covering up the triangular patches just a little bit in the centers. And it also gives I'm going to go back with this with a Sharpie after this, so the multiple layers actually makes it look like there is a lot of cloth there, and in many of the ribbons that is visible, it looks like there is multiple layers of cloth there, and that would give you that feel with not too much work. So one good thing about the liner brush is if you have loaded it properly and you have enough water in it and you have a good loaded brush, it finishes up pretty fast and quickly. I have pulled lines in between, so the lines going in between are right in the middle of the darkness that we had painted in. So just thin lines in between to kind of give it more definition. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the centers. I'm just loading my scruffy brush with just pure medium yellow, and I'm not double loading this brush at this point. I'm just taking pure yellow and I'm just bouncing it all through the center. And because I don't have two colors right now, it's easier for me to just go in, stick in within the lines and just paint it in. And it's a really bright yellow, so it kind of really brightens up this ribbon. And then I'm taking ochre in the dirty brush itself to one side. Okay, so I just lifted up some ochre in my scruffy brush, and I'm giving a slightly darker shade on one side of my ribbon to give it the look of a golden center with a reflection. So the lighter side forms the reflective part of it, and the ochre side would give the slightly darker shading on it. So that was pretty simple, and it's really fun to use a scruffy brush to get shading like that. And now I'm taking my Sharpie, like I said I would do before. I was waiting for my paint to dry actually before I started using my Sharpie. And now I'm just going and giving another outline on top to kind of darken the outline and also give it more definition. And it will also give this whole thing a little more brightness, because it just kind of makes the painting pop a little bit more to have a black outline. It is not essential, and you needn't do this step if you don't want to, but I like doing that. And you could do it also with a liner brush. You just have to be more careful if you're using black for a liner brush. I'm going to also just outline the ribbon edges too, the triangular parts at the bottom as well as the sides. And this also can be done with a liner brush in black, but you'll have to be more careful, as I said, if you intend doing that. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my flat brush and I'm going to use medium. I'm going to load medium in my brush and then tip one side of my brush with the darker shade of blue. And then I'm going to put some darker areas to represent shadows, which will make the ribbon look a little more realistic. But it's not an essential step, and for younger kids they can completely skip the step and straight away go and write the name or the message on the main ribbon. Right now I'm adding the same kind of shadows around the yellow part that I did. This is a great time to kind of correct all the rough edges on the yellow if you have any, and this will make the center look a little more raised up compared to the blues. So it will give a a raised look. You may not be able to see it as much on the camera, but in real life it does make a big difference. I'm also giving a slight bounce while doing it, so it automatically looks like there are wrinkles forming there like pleats, which also help in the overall effect of the ribbon. Okay, this again is an advanced, slightly more advanced technique, so it's meant more for the for kids who want to experiment with slightly more advanced painting techniques. If it's a really young kid who's trying this, you know, you could just leave it as I said before and just write your message. Okay, and this typically you want completely dry before you go and write anything, either with your Sharpie or your liner brush. Sharpie, of course, is way easier to do and you'll have better control over it, but I'm going to do it with a liner brush. I also decided to put a small design in the edge. You know, many of these ribbons have leaves, either in gold or in whatever color that matches the ribbon. They have these small spiky leaves that they put on the sides. So I'm doing that with a liner brush. This is again totally optional, and you may decide not to do this and just straight away write your message. But these are the designs that I had seen on the internet of real ribbons, so I just thought I would show you that that's another possibility for you to do. And then after that, I would just write whatever message you want, you could write. So I'm writing a hash and then number 1 and then followed by dad. So number 1, dad. There you go. And then that's it. We're all done. I hope you will attempt doing this for your fathers, and a very happy Father's Day.